In today's video, I'm going to be ranking every piece of equipment in Clash of Clans from worst to best. This video is going to help you decide what you should spend your ores on, as we already know the ore grind in Clash of Clans is very tedious, and of course nobody wants to waste their ore on equipment that are useless or you won't be using for very long. This ranking will help you whether you are a Town 08 player all the way up to Town 18. It does not matter. We have taken into account every single use case, and that way as you progress higher into the town halls, you can upgrade equipment that are going to be stronger the higher level you get, and they will last you a long time regardless of what the meta is necessarily. While the ranking of the equipments can obviously be affected by the current meta at Town 18, it is not the only thing we are relying on. We have several tiers that we will place them in, S being the most versatile, A being great, B being good, C being situational, and then we have the F tier, which we decided to name to will be replaced easily, because while some equipments are obviously just bad, it's safer to say they will be replaced down the road, so there isn't really much point in using them. I will be switching from the tier list screen to the actual in-game scene to kind of break down and explain why I ranked these equipments where I did. So with all that being said, let's get right into the rankings. Coming in at the very bottom is going to be the Archer Puppet and the Barbarian Puppet, equally at the same spot. While I don't think these equipments need much explanation, I will still do it, that way you guys can still understand every ranking. These are going to be replaced very easily, so if you are a Town 08 player and you just unlocked the Barbarian King and Archer Queen, just know the Barbarian Puppet and Archer Puppet fall off heavily right away. These are the beginner equipments of the Archer Queen and Barbarian, so it makes sense that they are going to be weaker, but I highly recommend if you are trying to upgrade your equipments, you just skip these in general, because the Barbarian Puppet and Archer Puppet are not going to provide much value when it comes to defenses dealing splash damage, and there is just way better options on the table for both the Barbarian King and Archer Queen almost instantly. Next up on the list is going to be the Royal Gem. Now this is one of the first equipments you get for the Royal Champion. It is an active ability that heals the Royal Champion by an extra large amount, but at the same time this ability, when it compares to the other Royal Champion equipments, is just not that great, and it falls off almost instantly. It doesn't have really any use case. The only use case it has is you would use this if you didn't have any other equipment, so for that reason it's placed in the F or will be replaced easily tier. The Noble Iron is next up on the list. I would put it slightly above the Royal Gem, but it is a very niche equipment. I wouldn't even say it's situational, because there is really no situation where you'd want to use the Noble Iron. Some may try and argue that this is like a rocket spear for the minion prince, but the thing is, it is a passive ability which doesn't really offer much control for the minion prince in general. I feel like this equipment would be better if it was an active ability, and increasing the speed, range, and power of the first few minion prince attacks is just not really useful overall. When you compare that with more of the other minion prince abilities, it's just not as versatile, and like I said, there's really no use case for it. People would try to make a case you can snipe buildings from afar, but like I said, there's just better options out there in the long run to spend your ores on in general. Next up on the list is going to be the Lava Loon Puppet. Now while it did just get buffed, and sure you can make it work, it is still one of those equipments that will be replaced very easily. The ability to spawn 3 Lava Loons is nice, but the Lava Loons only go for air defenses, and most of the time you will find that they just end up dying. You can make it work with the clones, and I guess you can clone an extra Lava Loon now with the housing space adjustment and the extra Lava Loon of course being added to each level. However, if we're being realistic, the other Warden equipments are just so much more better and so much more versatile. You'd really just be better off saving your ores and upgrading something like the Eternal Tome or Rage Gem down the line. Now for the Vamp Stash, I would rank it slightly above the Lava Loon Puppet. The reason being is the passive ability of healing per hit is pretty solid, and the hero boost with the DPS increase and the attack speed increase is, like I mentioned, very solid. It is an equipment though that will be easily replaced down the line with, for example, like the Snake Bracelet. I guess if you don't have the Snake Bracelet, you could use the Vamp Stash for now. You could even make a case that the Vamp Stash is underrated in some kind of way, but when it comes to the other King equipments and comparing it to the Snake Bracelet, it is going to be replaced pretty easily down the line. And like I mentioned, you would only use this if you didn't have the Snake Bracelet, and even then something like the Spiky Bowl and the Quake Boots would probably just be better anyways, so that's why it's ranked in the will be replaced F tier. Next up is going to be the Hog Rider Puppet. Now while the Hog Rider Puppet does have a use case, it is going to be replaced very easily with the other Royal Champion equipments down the line. The hero boost that it provides with the health recovery and the hit point increase is pretty nice, and the ability to spawn up to the 10 Hog Riders is also a very solid ability, but most of the time you'll find the Hog Riders do die pretty quickly, especially if you're in an area with high splash damage or there is a lot of traps. And by no means am I saying the Hog Rider Puppet is a trash equipment. I feel like a lot of people are going to be running to the comment section oftentimes, but this is why we made the last tier will be replaced easily /F, and that is why I rank the Hog Rider puppet higher than all of these, because it's not that it is a trash equipment, it's just it will be replaced very easily along the line, so it's not really worth investing that much ores into it. Like I mentioned earlier, ores are pretty hard to get, so it's really one of those scenarios. Why would you spend upgrading the Hog Rider puppet, for example, when you can spend it on upgrading the Electro Boots or Rocket Spear? For the last equipment in the will be replaced easily /F tier, we are going to put the Henchman puppet in this. Now, don't get me wrong, the Henchman puppet is a very solid starting equipment for the minion prince. The ability to spawn these little bodyguards, which can essentially taint traps for the minion prince and keep them alive a little longer, and also the underrated part of the ability which allows them to go invisible for a second, really similar to the Hog puppet in that way. Like I said, it's a very solid starting equipment, but it is going to be replaced very easily down the line. And now for the situational section of the tier list. The first equipment I'm going to put is the Invis Vial. The Invis Vial is the second starting equipment of the Archer Queen, and while it does do a good job at keeping the queen invisible and also doing that extra damage while she is invisible, there is really no point in using this equipment once you unlock better things, because while the ability to turn invisible is really good, as we've seen with the Henchman puppet and the Hog Rider puppet, she already has other equipments that do this and provide even better stat boost and damage overall, like the Magic Mirror and the Action Figure. The reason why it's not in the will be replaced easily tab or in the F tab is because there is some use to it when you are doing queen charges. I have seen people use the Action Figure in queen charges before, but most of the time the healers will switch onto the Giant and the queen will just end up going down, so that kind of defeats the purpose of the queen charge in general. But anyways, back to the point of the Invis Vial, it is very situational with queen charges, and like I mentioned, there's just other queen equipments that you want to spend your ores on down the line. Right next to the invisibility vial is going to be the Frozen Arrow. Now the Frozen Arrow is almost the exact reason that I mentioned for the invisibility vial. The Frozen Arrow would only be used in, for example, queen charges, and while the freezing ability up to 65% is pretty nice, there is just way more versatile equipments for the Archer Queen in general. Now, while queen charges do currently work pretty well at Town Hall 16 and below, once you get to Town Hall 17 and 18, they fall off dramatically due to the Town Hall weapon. The Guardians and the Infernal Artillery from the Town Hall 17 absolutely wreck your healers when you're queen charging. But does that make the Frozen Arrow worthless? No, it's just very situational. That would probably be one of the only cases you would use the Frozen Arrow in, is queen charges, so that's why I'll rank it in situational above the Invis Vial. Next up, we have the Metal Pants. Now the Metal Pants are more of an underrated equipment, but the only real use you would use them in over other minion prince equipments would be in an attack like a Fireball Rocket Loon attack, or an army where you have the minion prince solo on the base. It is an active ability that creates a protective barrier around the minion prince temporarily, and it reduces the incoming damage, which is a pretty good ability. But the thing is if you're sending the minion prince with your army, you just don't need the Metal Pants. The Metal Pants, like I said, is more of an equipment if you're sending the minion prince on a solo mission, because that's where it's going to get the most value. Equipments like the Meteor Staff and the Dark Crown just provide overall better stat boost for the hero boost and provide a more utility factor in most attacks overall. That is why it is very situational, because you would want to send this with the minion prince if you're using like a Rocket Loon Fireball attack where he can really soak up a lot of damage on his own. Otherwise, the Metal Pants don't really get that much use, and there is really almost no point in using him a lot of the time. Still, it is pretty good at what it does, so it is situational and not in the will be replaced easily tab. Next up is going to be the Seeking Shield, and I would rank the Seeking Shield a little bit higher than the Metal Pants. The Seeking Shield is a starting equipment for the Royal Champion, and while it will be replaced easily later on down the line rather quickly, it does still have a very situational use case. You would pair the Seeking Shield with the Rocket Spear, mainly in attacks where you want to sacrifice the Royal Champion to get value in the base. Recently, it has seen high use rate with the Dragon Rider Totem strategy, because you pop the Seeking Shield right away to soften up the buildings, and then you want to finish it off with the Rocket Spear, pair it with the Phoenix, and she basically clears out a part of the base with the defenses. And paired with the Phoenix, she can do a good job of zoning and funneling, so that is a pretty good use case, but also a very niche one. It has the ability to one-shot a lot of buildings, and it does a pretty decent amount of damage, but it only targets 4 buildings, making it a very situational niche kind of equipment, and that is why it's ranked in C and not something like F. Next up is going to be the Life Gem. Now the Life Gem does see some use with armies like Hybrid and more recently Throwers, but that is really only 2 of the armies you will ever see the Life Gem being used. Recently the Life Gem did get buffed, so it does provide some pretty decent stats for the passive ability. You'll notice the HP increase is 120%, which does seem like a lot because that is more than double the hit points of whatever is inside the Warden's aura. So just to give you some context, if something has 1000 hit points and they're inside the life gem of the Grand Warden, they will have 2200 hit points because it is an increase of 120%. The reason why this equipment isn't ranked higher though is because there is a max HP increase of 1200 at the highest level. So if you were thinking pairing the life gem with the dragons where you get 120% extra hit points, that does not work. The dragon will not go from 500 hit points to 10,000. The maximum amount of HP it can provide is 1200, making it not the best with high HP units overall, whether it's air or ground, and it's mainly good with lower housing space troops right now, like the thrower and of course the hog riders and the miners, because it essentially almost doubles their health. However, when it comes to versatility, somebody would probably prefer the healing tome overall. Still though, life gem is pretty solid at what it does, and that's why we're going to put it in the situational section, because although it's not one of the best equipments in the game, it is still pretty good at what it does. And now for the last equipment in the situational section, we are going to put the haste vial. Now the haste vial is a very solid equipment, but it is very situational. While it can serve a more general use case, the thing about the haste vial is it is a double-edged sword. While it does allow the royal champion to take out buildings very quickly in the area, sometimes she can end up running off and dying, and it can be kind of hard to control, especially when you're attacking. But we're not ranking this equipment based on the difficulty of usage, we're ranking it based on its versatility and usage. The haste vial mainly shines when it comes to long RC charges. It is mainly good in attacks with mass dragons when you are running a mass amount of invis spells, and especially the root rider, especially in bases that have a really good core with a lot of value. Popping the haste vial is very good and allows you to get a lot of buildings, but realistically that is one of the only use cases for the RC charges. You're really better off using most of the other RC equipments when it comes to rocket spear and electro boots, because those are more versatile. You don't risk putting your royal champion in danger a lot of the time. The haste vial is good at what it does, and that's why it is situational. Moving on to the good section of the tier list, the first thing I'm going to put is the healer puppet. The healer puppet is a good equipment. It's not one of the best equipments, but it is a very solid equipment. Being able to summon the flock of healers to help your queen out a little bit is nice. However, the units level on the healers are not maxed out, so it is not necessarily as OP as you might think it would be. I almost wanted to put this in a situational kind of tab, but there's really no specific situation you'd want to use the healer puppet in. I guess it's more of a general good use type of equipment. However, if you're comparing it to something like the magic mirror or the action figure, it's not as good as those. So while the healer puppet is a good equipment, it is not one of the best. It is just good in general. That's why it's in B. Right above the healer puppet, I'm going to put the rage vial for the barbarian king. Now I know some people are going to try to say that the rage vial is trash, but when you pair it with the giant gauntlet, it is not trash at all. This is a starting equipment for the barbarian king, but it doesn't necessarily mean it is a bad one. The ability duration is quite long, and like I mentioned, pairing it with something like the giant gauntlet is still very good. This was meta for a pretty decent amount of time until something like the quake boots and spiky ball got added, and the main reason why the spiky ball and quake boots or the spiky ball and snake bracelet are more of the used combo nowadays, it doesn't necessarily mean that the rage vial is bad. It's good at what it does and can also be used in a more general sense of equipment. Is there better equipment options? Yes. It's not one of the greatest equipments, but when it comes to using it, it is good at what it does. So for that reason, I'm going to put it slightly above the healer puppet. Right next to the rage vial is going to be the giant gauntlet, because these two pair pretty well together, and the giant gauntlet is still a pretty good equipment. I almost want to put the giant gauntlet in great, but of course there are better options out there for the king in terms of versatility. But like I said, just because it is not the most versatile king equipment doesn't mean it's not bad. It is a good equipment, especially paired with the rage vial, allowing you to sui inside of a base. If you don't know what sui means, it just means sending the king into a portion of the base and taking out a large portion before he goes down, usually pairing it with the phoenix or using it inside the base. The main perk of the giant gauntlet is the damage reduction, which is a whopping 55%, which actually has been getting used more in esport matches because there is so much damage at tunnel 18, especially with the modifiers, so it makes the giant gauntlet a pretty good equipment. Next up is going to be the dark crown, which I will rank slightly higher than the giant gauntlet. Now the dark crown is good at what it does. I almost wanted to put it in situational, but it is a pretty good general use type of equipment. The main use case of the dark crown is it really does shine with troops like the dragon, and when the minion prince is fully buffed up with the max health increase and the max damage increase and and of course the attack speed makes him very powerful. One thing many people do is pair the Dark Crown with the Phoenix on the minion prince, because when he dies and he comes back and he's invincible for 7 seconds, he can take out a whole portion of the base while he is invincible with that extra damage and attack speed. So he just becomes a monster in air attacks and can be pretty clutch in the core of the base or towards the end of the attack. The Dark Crown is really good at what it does and does provide a pretty good passive ability as the attack does go on. Next up on the list is going to be the Heroic Torch, which I will rank slightly higher than the Dark Crown. Now the Heroic Torch is seeing a lot of use right now, especially at Town Hall 18 after the buff. I am also using the Heroic Torch with my Meteor Golem spam, and it's also being used in Super Yeti spam attacks as well. The recent buffs make the active ability last for pretty long at max level, and the speed increase and damage reduction is pretty underrated. I almost wanted to rank this equipment in the great tier just because of how much use it's been getting. Some people will call it overrated compared to equipment like the Eternal Tome and the Healing Tome, but for right now I will say the Heroic Torch is just really good at what it does, allowing you to go through these annoying bases with the town halls in the middle, and it also does help you in your attack if you're not the best at funneling, although you should learn how to funnel, of course. That's the basics of attacking, but it is still really good at what it does. The speed increase is good and it does help you out a lot in certain smash attacks, but all the boosts are pretty good and it does help you a lot in the ground attacks and smash attacks in general. The next equipment on the list is going to be the Meteor Staff. Now the Meteor Staff does provide pretty good passive damage throughout the entire attack, and one could argue it is pretty versatile just in general with something like Electro Dragons and even Dragon Riders as well. Recently it's seen a pretty decent use case. The minion prince does like to hang back sometimes in attacks, and the Meteor Staff has become almost underrated, especially at max level with the cooldown only being 5 seconds and the range literally being unlimited. When it comes to the end of the attack, the minion prince can pretty much pick off a lot of defenses in the back end while he's working on cleanup buildings like resource collectors and storages, which makes the Meteor Staff pretty good at what it does and almost underrated in some ways like the Heroic Torch. And last but not least, we have the Quake Boots for the Barbarian King in the good tab. Now I know people are going to run to the comments again and say, I don't know what I'm talking about, it should be an S, it's the most versatile equipment in the game, but we are comparing these equipments to each other in a tier list. And while the Earthquake Boots before was considered the most versatile, and while it is considered a great equipment at what it does, it doesn't automatically make it the best equipment for the king in the game. The Earthquake Boots allow you to open up walls in any portion of the base, especially when a base is compact. It gives a lot of value, and also the damage that it does, 40%, is pretty massive. It is very good at what it does. The reason why we're ranking it in the good tab is because when it comes to versatility and the S tier, it is not more versatile than something like the Snake Bracelet and the Spiky Ball in general. While the Earthquake Boots are good at what they do, it is not a must-use equipment or an equipment you would use in every single attack like the Spiky Ball and Snake Bracelet. It's only really good for the ground attacks, which are only half of the attacks in the game. Like I said, I'm not saying the equipment is bad because we already know it is almost an S tier at what it does, if not the S tier equipment for breaking the walls. But when it comes to all the equipments in the game for the Barbarian King, it is not number one. It is a good equipment. Some would argue it's a great equipment, but I think putting it in B is a pretty fair rating and also a unbiased ranking overall. Moving on to the great tier, the first equipment I'm going to put is going to be the Rocket Spear. The Rocket Spear is arguably one of the most versatile equipments in the entire game, arguably the second most versatile equipment for the World Champion, pairing very well with the Electro Boots. It allows the RC to stay out of range of most defenses in the game, and the damage it does is very good. It can be used at the start of the attack for funneling, it can be used at the end of the attack for extra damage and support, you can use it during the attack. It is a very versatile equipment. It is a great equipment. However, the reason why I'm not putting it at S for most versatile is we want to save the most versatile tier for the most truly versatile equipments in the entire game. While you can argue the Rocket Spear is arguably one of the most versatile, I wouldn't put it in the S tier, although you could argue it could be. We want to have a tier list that is balanced out and not just having every single equipment in the S tier. So for that reason, I'm putting it in the great tier. Next up is going to be the Healing Tome. Now the Healing Tome, we already know, is one of the best equipments in the game. It works very well for air attacks and ground attacks. Some would argue that the Healing Tome is S tier for most versatile, and while it is a very great equipment, I am going to leave it in the great section because yes, it is really good at healing almost everything in the game. You can use it with Electro Dragons even, you can use it with regular dragons, Dragon Riders, really any kind of air fire attack. You can use it with root riders, you can use it with even throwers, you can even use it with hybrid, especially over the life gem, and it is a very versatile equipment. It is a very good equipment. The healing tome is one of the best equipments in the game, and that is why it is a great equipment. However, is it the most versatile or S tier? It's pretty easy to argue that in some cases it is, but overall it is not. Over something like the rage gem, which is used in fireball armies and regular armies. Like I said, the healing tome is a great equipment, but I am not going to put it at S. While it is S in some cases, I think it is just a great equipment, just like the rocket spear. Like I said, I know some people are going to go to the comments and say I'm wrong, but we don't want to make the S tier filled with every single equipment in the game, because then we'd be here forever and it would not really be a balanced tier list. The next equipment on the list is going to be the giant arrow. The giant arrow is a great equipment at almost everything it does. The number one thing you would want to use it for, of course, is to snipe out air defenses, snipe out the air sweepers, and especially triggering invis tower bases in the middle, which are very annoying. A lot of players in Legend League and the top players in the world just bring the giant arrow right now in Legend League because it is just a very versatile equipment. Is it the most versatile equipment for Legend League? Yes, but in general it is not. Like I said, it's really good in both air and ground armies at what it does. It is a great equipment. However, on a lot of bases you can argue that the giant arrow is not needed for every single scenario. It is a great equipment, but it is not the most versatile, so it's just going to be in the great tab. Next up is going to be the fireball. Now I know a lot of people are going to run to the comments once again and say, Termy, the fireball is an S tier equipment. It's used in a lot of top armies. A lot of the top players, I would probably say like top 200, most of them are using like fireball, or maybe not right now, they're using spam, but fireball is used by a lot of top players. It's really good. It's really OP. The thing is though, fireball is, I would say, a great equipment because it is not the most versatile equipment in the game. Especially currently, a lot of people are building bases to counter the fireball value. Now while the fireball is used to mainly take out a big portion of the base that has value, like the clan castle, revenge tower, monolith, and any hard hitting defense, it can also be used for funneling. And like I mentioned, it's used in a lot of the top armies like Rocket Loon Fireball, Fireball Throwers, Fireball Super Witches, Fireball Meteor Golems. You can even do Fireball Root Riders. Fireball is arguably a pretty versatile equipment and a very impactful equipment for the Warden, and you could even argue it is a pretty versatile equipment. However, it is a great equipment, and this is coming from someone who has used Fireball Super Witches for the longest time, and I've used Fireball Rocket Loons for the longest time as well. I would say the Fireball is even my favorite equipment, but I will be biased to put it in the S tier, I feel like, as many people would, because this tier list needs to be balanced in a way where it's not biased. So for that reason, the Fireball is great, but it is not the best equipment for the Warden overall. The next equipment on the list is going to be the Frost Flake. Now, I know I'm going to get mixed reactions and mixed opinions for the Frost Flake being raked over the Fireball. The thing about the Frost Flake though is you can use the Frost Flake in armies that have the Fireball, whether it's a Fireball strategy, whether it's an army with the Eternal Tome, ground, or air, it does not matter. The Frost Flake is basically a better version than the Hog Rider puppet. I think Rakira's put it best. It's almost like Eternal Tome 2.0, allowing you to freeze 7 defenses for 7 seconds. It might not seem like a lot of time, but if you can time it at the right time, it is a really good equipment. I feel like since it's newer, it goes through the same phase that almost every equipment has gone through in this game of people saying it's bad, it's not really needed. I wanted to say this at the beginning of the video, but I did this ranking live, not just by myself, but with many other people in my stream, and we were talking about all of the use cases for all these equipments, and the Frost Flake is a great equipment at what it does, and it is arguably very versatile. In some cases it could even be considered S, but like I said, it's more of a newer equipment, and I feel like people are going to try to cook me in the comments for saying the Frost Flake is as high as it is, but especially if pro players are saying that it is very good and they are using it in their own armies, I think that should probably say a lot about how good the equipment actually is and the type of value it can bring, especially in the harder battle modifier modes where execution and equipment matter more than ever. Could you just use the rocket spear and the electro boots? Sure, but in terms of using the Frost Flake at the right time, it all comes down to your execution. We are not ranking the equipments based on how well you can use them, because in that case we would rank the Fireball at the bottom tier for a lot of people. But if you can get the value and use it right, the Frost Flake is one of the best equipments in the game overall, regardless of what anybody tells you. Next up is going to be the Eternal Tome. I think for obvious reasons, I don't really need to explain why the Eternal Tome is ranked so high, but I'm going to do it obviously because this is a tier list. Some would say the Eternal Tome is S tier, allowing you to block all the incoming damage for 8 seconds. Now on paper, 8 seconds might not seem like a lot, but we already know the the impact that being invincible for 8 seconds for your whole entire army in the aura of the Grand Warden does, it is a very impactful equipment and could be the difference maker whether you 3-star or not based on when you activate it. I also want to point that out because people say it's only 7 seconds for the Frost Flake and the Eternal Tome is only 8 seconds. But yeah, Eternal Tome, very impactful equipment, obviously a very good equipment. I am putting it in the great tier because you can argue sure it is the most versatile equipment. I think obviously the Eternal Tome is great at what it does, but I would not rank it in the most versatile because there are a lot of armies, especially right now in the meta, that don't even use the Eternal Tome, or sometimes it's not even needed. Like I said, you can share your feedback in the comments. I'm curious what you guys are going to say, but I feel like this is a very fair ranking for the Eternal Tome. Next up is going to be the Magic Mirror. I'm going to rank the Magic Mirror over the Eternal Tome because the Magic Mirror is still one of the greatest equipments in the game, still very versatile equipment as well. The ability to spawn an extra 2 clones of Archer Queens that do a lot of damage and also lets the queen go invisible for 1 second is just really good. You can even argue the Magic Mirror is S tier. Obviously I'm going to put it in the A tier, but the Magic Mirror is really good in terms of extra damage. It is an equipment you would take most of the time instead of the Giant Arrow. The reason why I'm going back to the Giant Arrow earlier is because I know people are going to say you take the Giant Arrow in a lot of your Legend League attacks, but if you didn't have to deal with the randomization of Legend League, taking the Magic Mirror would just be the better choice because it is more versatile and just does better damage, has better stats for the queen. It's really good for funneling and it's just really good for extra damage in general. So yeah, Magic Mirror is one of the best equipments in the game. I'm going to rank it at the A spot, which is pretty high. And last but not least, we have the Snake Bracelet coming in at the top for the great tier. The Snake Bracelet is arguably the second best king equipment for the game in general. The passive stats, the snakes doing extra damage, and the hit point increase are very good when you pair it with something like the Spiky Ball. It makes the king an absolute unit on the field, especially when you're putting him on the outside. He does a great job of funneling, doing extra damage, and the king usually stays alive for most of the attack if you execute it right. It's just a great equipment at what it does, and there's really not other equipments that can do this for the Barbarian King. I was mentioning the Vamp Stash at the very beginning of the video. It's almost like a Vamp Stash, but actually good because of the tanking of the snakes and the damage of the snakes too. And yeah, it's literally used in most of the meta strategies with Meteor Golems, with Root Riders, even with air attacks, putting the king on the outside. It's very versatile and it just provides really good stats. So for that reason, it's going in the great section. And now for the final row of equipment, the S tier, which is going to be the most versatile tier, arguably the equipment you should focus upgrading overall because these are going to help you no matter what stage you're at. The first equipment I'm going to put in the S tier is going to be the Dark Orb. The Dark Orb is one of the most impactful equipments you will use during an attack. It can sometimes be the biggest difference maker whether you will get the 3-star or not. The area of effect is massive and the slowdown effect of 50% is just really good. Like I said, it is super impactful. It is definitely the best equipment for the Minion Prince, almost by far the most versatile as well. There is very few scenarios where the Minion Prince should never be taking the Dark Orb because like I mentioned, the value, especially if you can land it on a really good area, is unbeatable. It provides the most value for the Minion Prince overall, and it is a big difference maker whether you will 3-star sometimes or not. So Dark Orb is going to be in the S tier due to its versatility and how good it is in your attacks. Next up is going to be the Rage Gem. Now I know people are going to maybe disagree with putting the Rage Gem over the Eternal Tome in the S tier or the most versatile tier, but I'm going to explain why it's ranked so high. The Rage Gem can be used in almost any attack in this game. It's used in, most importantly, Ward and Walk Fireball attacks, which are literally the meta. Some of the most strongest strategies, obviously being Ward and Walk Fireball, Ward and Walk into really anything uses the Rage Gem for most of the time. And not even that, you could use the Rage Gem with dragon attacks, you could use the Rage Gem with a lot of armies. Meteor Golems, Super Yetis, Electro Titans. You can even use the Rage Gem on Root Riders instead of the Healing Tome because you have the healers. The attack speed increase literally being 22% and that being in effect the entire time the Warden is alive is just really good. It is literally the most versatile equipment for ground and air attacks, and like I said, it can be used in Warden Walks, which are majority of the meta armies currently, air spam attacks and ground spam attacks. It's just really good when you pair it, of course, with the Healing Tome, with the Eternal Tome even, and the Life Gem even. So for that reason, the Rage Gem is going to be ranked in the S tier. The third to last equipment is going to be the Action Figure. The Action Figure is going to be the third most versatile best equipment in the game in general. The Action Figure allows you to instantly spawn the event troop called the Giant, which if you look at the hit points is just insane. 18,500 hit points, the damage is 700 per second, and he does splash damage too. And when he gets to half of his health, he activates the Giant Rage, which does so much damage. The Giant has been more clutch in my attacks than I can even count, and of course he can be healed up, he can tank, he can break walls. He does so much damage and so much tanking. A lot of the times in the attack, the Giant becomes the MVP every time you use him. And not to mention, of course, the Queen goes invisible when you use this equipment, which makes it really underrated in that aspect as well. The hero boosts are also pretty nice too, but the main feature is just the action figure being the Giant in general. It is so good. It is the most versatile Queen equipment in the game. Giant with Giant Arrow, Giant with Magic Mirror, Giant with Halo Puppet. It can be used with every single equipment combo on the Queen in the game, and that is why it is ranked so high. The second to last equipment is going to be the Spiky Ball. The Spiky Ball is the most versatile equipment for the Barbarian King in the entire game. The Spiky Ball is really good at what it does. It hits a maximum of 8 targets. It one-shots so many different buildings, does so much damage. You can activate the Spiky Ball on the outside to clear buildings for the funnel. You can activate the Spiky Ball in the middle of the base to clear buildings inside, and it is guaranteed value, which is the most important thing about the Spiky Ball. Pairing the Spiky Ball with the Snake Bracelet, pairing the Spiky Ball even with the Giant Gauntlet is pretty good. And of course, Spiky Ball with the Earthquake Boots. It is the most versatile King equipment in the entire game. The guaranteed value just makes it good alone, and yeah, that's pretty much why it's an S tier equipment. It's just really good. And last but not least is going to be the Electro Boots for the World Champion. The World Champion Electro Boots are the most versatile equipment in the game. There is almost no scenario where you would not use the Electro Boots ever. The ability to kill every single type of skeleton trap, whether it's ground or air, instantly is like literally so overpowered. You can kill almost every single clan castle troop really easily. The passive damage when you're doing RC charge is just unbeatable. It allows the RC to go in with the main army and help in ways that are unbeatable with every other equipment. Like you would pair this with the Rocket Spear, you can pair this with the Frost Flake. The only scenario, like I mentioned earlier, where you wouldn't use the Electro Boots would be, for example, like the Rocket Spear and the Seeking Shield kind of Sui combo, but otherwise the Electro Boots are literally the most versatile World Champion equipment, and there is almost no reason why you should not be using it. It is just very versatile, kills everything, does a lot of damage, RC charge, redeploy the RC with the main army. It is just so good. Despite it being nerfed a few times, it's still like the best equipment in the game in general. It can be used in air or ground, and that is why the Electro Boots have the top spot in the entire tier list. And that does complete the entire ranking of the equipment tier list for 2026. Of course, more equipments are going to be coming out this year, we can expect. There might even be one in February because we had a medal event in December, but I wanted to get this equipment ranking out as soon as I could. I do want to say I'm sorry for not getting it out faster like at the beginning of the year, but I wanted to wait until the balance changes actually happen with the Heroic Torch especially, so we can really see where the equipment rankings are, if some are still good, if some are actually improved, and if some are still bad after the buffs, like the Lava Loon Puppet. I will leave a link to my tier list in the bottom so you can play around with it, or let me know what you guys think about the tier list. I really tried to be unbiased as possible, and if you don't believe me about the live ranking, we ranked all of these equipments for like over an hour yesterday. It was me and everybody in my live stream. We kept picking apart the entire tier list, changing the tiers, removing things, moving things around, thinking of every single use case for each equipment. I will leave the live stream link in the comments. That way, if you really want, you can go and see all of the changes we made, our thought process, and our in-depth explanations for all the equipment rankings in general. I also left the timestamp here as well. It starts at about 2 hours in. Of course, I didn't want to just clip my entire breakdown, so I made the tier list ahead of time and then broke down everything for a video. That way it's easier to understand for you guys. Like I said, I'll leave the tier list link and the live stream in the comments down below so you can go and watch them with the timestamp. Hopefully this tier list lets you understand all of the best and worst equipments ranked from worst to best in an unbiased way, and it really helps you decide based on the reasonings and the thoughts that I gave you guys on what you should upgrade and what you should probably avoid in the long run, whether you are a near max Town Hall 18 player, a Town Hall 16 player, or you're just getting equipments at Town Hall 8. This tier list is going to help you really understand where the equipments are, what you should focus on, and what you should save your ore on in general. If you guys do have any other ideas for videos that you want to see, let me know in the comments down below as well, because I do want to release some more guide content, but I want to release content that is going to help you guys, so maybe I'll just release guides in general. And I do want to release more tier list videos for the skins and scenery, so stay tuned for that as well. If you enjoyed today's video and you made it to the end, please consider subscribing if you're new and leaving a like on the video, as it took a while to actually make the tier list and edit it all up together to make it all nice and presentable and easy to understand. and it would really help out the channel a lot. Let me know what you guys think about the tier list in the comments down below. What would you change? What would you rank it? Do you think the ranking is fair? And stay tuned for more updated information. Of course, the new season is coming out very soon. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next video or stream. Until then, I'm out. Peace.